We're going to start. Charles, if you want to say hello,
Hello.
a little bit about your frame from the peers perspective.
So I have like one PowerPoint slide. So to avoid the PowerPoint handoff fiasco, I'm just going to sort of walk my way through it. As I was thinking about this, for me, the story emerged about what's my role as a faculty colleague. And so I'm going to basically say 4 questions that I would like all of you to consider as we move forward through this new era. And just really quickly, a little bit about me and how these questions have caused me to reflect on my own role. So just a little bit of background about me for those of you who don't know me. I was at another university for 17 years. And I had some colleagues who are at my now current institution, which is LaSalle University, approached me at an OBTS/MOBTS conference in Vanderbilt, however many years ago that was, and said, "We have a job opening at LaSalle. Would you be interested?" And I'm sure, let's talk. I was not on the market, had no intention of leaving my current job. And a year later, I'm in Philadelphia at LaSalle University. And part of the interesting conversation for me was the approach. Why I was brought to LaSalle was I'm a strategy person by training, and we knew that we had a shortage, but our department had also been looking forward to the fact that a number of our members of our department were approaching retirement age. They wanted to transition. They wanted to continue incredibly with the MOBTS culture that had embedded within a department. 3 members of the department were regular attendees. And so there was this whole series of issues basically about skill set, knowing the department culture. And so that's why I was brought in.
Could you try again?
So that was the starting point of how I was brought to LaSalle. So I was brought in as a senior faculty member, and that senior faculty member actually has turned into my role here at LaSalle during the crisis. So I'd ask all of you to say, what's your own background as a professional or your own personal background that enables you to be a colleague, a supporter, whatever role that you're going to use with helping your own colleagues. So I've realized over the last couple of months as a result of this session and what I've wound up doing within the department, that my background has helped me, my larger professional background as a faculty member has helped me in 2 really specific ways. As a senior faculty member, we have several members. We're the management and business law department. So I have some colleagues in my department who are fairly new to higher education. So this whole idea of whether they came in as business lawyers and haven't been through the whole higher ed story. And part of it is for me, unfortunately, I've been through this before. I've been through the 2001, 2002 recession. I've been through the Great Recession. And while that's not a perfect analogy, I don't think anything is to what's happening today, it's helped at least given me some experience to say these are why my school's reacting, or this is what's happening and why institutionally. I've also found it valuable that I'm one of the few members of my department who's been at multiple institutions. The only other person who's been at multiple institutions is a junior faculty who's just starting their 4th year, so they were only in it for 3 years. So helping my colleagues understand the larger higher ed story and how we tend to respond to crises, but also the fact that I can't tell you how many times here's what we did at my previous institution, and I'm not doing that to say my previous institution did it better or worse, but it's just here are the things that we all share in common in higher ed. So for me, that's turned into a really powerful part of the story, is that my own background is being not only a senior faculty member, but being at multiple institutions. So that would be my first question to you. What's your background that you can contribute to helping your colleagues work their way through this crisis? The second question is, especially in management and leadership departments, how can your research help? So my area is strategy. Many of my co-authors are with me, and we loosely talk about the business of business schools. So I've had a lot of opportunity as our university adopts this strategic plan or this task force or puts forward these thoughts. I can sort of say, based on my own background, here's why these kinds of things are happening. I never, ever thought that I would be using my business of business school research to explain to colleagues who really don't tend to think that way. So that's given me an opportunity. So I'd ask all of you, how can your own research that you're doing help your colleagues move through this situation or deal with or handle, or at least not go running and screaming out of the room? I would also come back to what are your personal gifts that you can share. And on my screen, the top left person on my screen calls me her personal technology consultant. I've been deeply involved in a previous career and just in my own technology and just about everything I do. Past jobs, technology task force. I'm on the task force for technology and teaching here. So what personal gifts? You may have a personal hobby or something along that, and I see the clapping hands. And the last part for me is, how do we build community? So one of the suggestions that I made in conjunction with my own department is that we get together on Zoom, and we do it every Friday for an hour just to talk. So again, 4 questions. What's your background that you can contribute to this? Can your research help? What are your own personal gifts can you share? And how can you contribute to building community? Thank you.
Thanks, Charles. A genius wrap up. He's given us some catalyst questions there. And hopefully people saw in the chat, just jot down some notes. This is my first foray into managing on Zoom. And so I'm going to put people in some breakouts, and we'll do 4 per room. And so there'll be 4 rooms. So I'm just going to do this automatically. And then, so let's take about 10 minutes in your breakouts, and then we'll come back in and do a very brief debrief together. So hopefully, well, I think Charles has given us a lot to talk about. So see you later.
Yeah. And I'll also note that one of the people who brought me to LaSalle's in the room. Hi, Joe.
It is so fun to see everybody popping back in. This is great. So thank you. We have a couple minutes before John Stark. We have about 5 minutes before John Stark is going to talk from the space of the faculty member and the administrative relationship. Anybody want to share a couple of pithy things that came out of your breakout?
I can share from our group. We mainly focused on the first question of how your background might, impact your ability to affect what's going on right now. And so we had some interesting experiences and perspectives in the room from someone who was brand new in August and has come into her institution with a real openness and kind of questioning and trying to figure out what the organization is like, and being open to roll with the punches now that things are changing, because she didn't really have a status quo. So, she's still just learning, even as we're doing all this, and maybe being a little more flexible than some of her colleagues who are a little more set in their ways. And someone who is a PhD student and an adjunct. And so coming from the adjunct perspective, where there's often some uncertainty just in your position as an adjunct, but has found a way to make herself really valuable to her colleagues, particularly with her technical expertise, but also just being willing to take on any classes that anybody else doesn't want to take on, and being known as the person who's willing to shoulder that for the group. And then I talked about the fact that I have left an institution before that I really loved, but that was in a situation where they were in financial turmoil, and it was over a year and a half of trying to figure out who was going to get fired, what programs were going to get cut, how are they going to restructure. So I have some experience with living with uncertainty and trying to survive through the chaos, and taking that resilience into our current pandemic situation.
Those are all very positive stories. And I wonder about the exhaustion factor of always being that person. I mean, Charles and I have talked about this a lot, that he has a very, very wide and deep pit of emotional engagement, willing to share with other people. And so it's interesting to think about where are the boundaries of how much you're going to help your colleagues. And I think that's an ongoing conversation. But Charles, thanks for those questions. And thank you. So I want to get to John Stark. And so John's going to tell a little bit about his multifaceted role, and then share a little bit from an administration and faculty relationship perspective. Thanks.
Okay, well, thank you everyone again for being here. It's nice. I really enjoyed our breakout session. That was really cool. We had a good conversation with the four of us that were in it. A little bit about me. I spent 16 years out in the business world, mostly in small and medium-sized organizations, public and private. I was in charge of office services for the state of Alaska's Department of Labor for a number of years and whatnot. But after about 16 years, I lost my mind and went back and got my doctorate at University of Missouri in Columbia, and then came out to Cal State Bakersfield in 2000. So I'm just completed my 20th year here, and in those 20 years, I've spent 12 of those years actually in some form of leadership role. I've been a chair of our academic senate. I've been a department chair for 6 years. I was associate dean, and I was actually our interim dean for 18 months. So I've sat in all those chairs and done all of that. And a couple of years ago, sanity returned, and I went back to faculty, and finally got some research going, and so I'm full professor. Charles and I actually entered tenured full professor status the same year, so that was something to celebrate, and we still need more celebration for that. But at any rate, I thought I would bring that kind of perspective to the discussion. And one of the things that's really of concern is for faculty members. I mean, we're very focused in what we're doing in terms of our research, in terms of our classes and our students and all those kinds of things. And it's easy for us to get the mistaken impression that students and faculty ought to be the most important things at the university, right? I mean, like that actually is what the university is for. I can tell you that while not trying to be too cynical, while not all administrators have completely lost sight of that, there are a whole lot more that is on their plate, a whole lot more items that are on their plate. So let me just share a few of them that are hitting us here out the California state system, and what we're dealing with, how we're trying to navigate. So one of the things is that there are a variety of issues. When we think about students, we ultimately think about, all right, how do they learn? How do we help them learn? Things of that nature. And I know we've done a lot of investing in most of our campuses in trying to get the faculty up so that they can run from home. So some out here, we've invested in hotspots, we've invested in cameras, we've invested in mics and things, and all those kinds of things to build up the system. The thing that we hadn't thought as much about, and I know we've joined a lot in terms of getting out Chromebooks and things like that for our students, but it wasn't just a matter of computing power. Internet access, especially in our rural areas. How the heck do we do these things? One of our local school districts really got ingenious. They've got a regular schedule. They've got a school bus all decked out with extra power, and they go and they park that school bus in a parking lot on a regular schedule, and then kids just flock in around, so they can log on with, their Chromebooks and can have enough internet access. Well, we haven't done anything like that. So we're still in the process of trying to figure out how to support the students. So that is something that's on the faculty or on the administration's mind. But one of the things that has also arisen is the fact that, we've got to deal with the whole student. So one of the things that we're really concerned with out here is food insufficiency. They've done a number of surveys. About 40% of our students in the Cal State system are at risk. They're food insufficient. So how do we somehow deal with that? When our campuses were open, it was easy. We have a food pantry. In fact, basically all of the CSUs are mandated to have something like that now. So we were supporting a lot of students that way. How do we deal with that? We're not like the elementary schools. They actually have, in our area, have kept their kitchens going and have a regular system where people can drive by. Basically, it's takeout, if you will, and they just have it all there, and they're passing out these food packs to families that drive by. But we don't have anything like that. So that's one of the things the administrators are worrying about. So in addition to the idea of students and teaching, they're worried about these other issues and how do we deal with these things. One of the biggest, and all of you know this, is the budget. Out here in California, they're going to be taking about $160 million out of the Cal State system budget this year. And that's assuming that things don't get worse. Now, that's for my campus would be, it's not as bad as it could have been, I guess. We're about $130 million budget, and they're probably going to take $9 million out of our budget. And between some federal relief funds and whatnot, we're probably going to be all right. But those are kinds of things your administrators are worried about, is just having enough money for payroll. Because remember, 85% of your university is your people. And so just being able to make budget, make payroll, that's something that a lot of the schools have in mind. The last thing that I'd like to talk just a little bit about is the whole idea of shared governance and how to keep that going. The Cal State system is very about shared governance. I mean, Title V of the California Code, which governs education, very clearly says in higher education, academics will come through the faculty. So how do you make decisions? For example, some of your campuses probably decided to go with credit, no credit classes. Students could opt to do something like that. The time period for which they could drop a class without a negative impact was probably increased. And so things like that were probably decided. Well, normally those kinds of things would run through the academic senate and would have a lot of time for vetting and a lot of time for discussion. For us, it did go through the Senate. I am on the Senate, I'm back on the Senate, but it was like it was provided for us in one meeting and said, oh, by the way, folks, we've got to do this now. There's not a lot of time for debate. So a lot of these things are done ahead of time. Now, they are trying to involve the executive leadership of the Senate, so we're having to have some faith that there is some faculty input. But some of these decisions are having to be made very quickly, and it's very easy when you're in administration, and you think about it, we're training our students to make decisions, right? And we're training them how to make difficult decisions, and oftentimes those need to be made on the run, on the go, without a ton of input, and under a tight timeline. And when those kinds of things happen, just as we use with case studies and whatnot with our students, our administrators face it also, it's easy just to go ahead and decide, right? Not to do a lot of in-depth discussion, get a lot of feedback. So how does this play out? Just from the session, breakout session I was just in, there was a lot of emotion in the fact that decisions are being made about whether campuses are going to be face-to-face or online without much feedback or input from faculty. okay? And administrators are sitting there. For example, one of the things in the Cal State that I think one reason that forced us to make the decision so quickly, our society, we're in our universities, we're almost 50% Hispanic. And in that culture, a lot of extended families and whatnot. So to be honest, I think liability drove a lot of this, the Cal State system's decision, because the thinking was, okay, if we're facing this resurgence or whatever, it may not hurt our students very badly, but what if they get infected and they take it home and grandma and grandpa are living there? And they're now in a high-risk area. So where did it come from? What came from the kid in school, and now it's taken it home? And so I think liability probably is one of the things that drove us, because we're such a huge target. But still, we have, believe it or not, we've got people that are, say, right on, that was the right decision, great, great, great. But then we've also got faculty that are really upset about it. Because again, 70% of our students are first gen, a lot of them struggle with what school is about anyway. And that personal contact, that direct connection is so critical in getting these students through. So the whole idea here of how to include and have this kind of discussion, how to get involved. I think what faculty need to do, I guess my closing thought would be, how might you positively or affirmatively engage administration in some of those decisions, because sometimes they're just running so fast, they don't stop and think. They just, I need to get this taken care of to move to the next. So just remember, the very things we're teaching about decision making, our administrators are going through. So okay, I'll end with that.
Thank you for that. Really the implications of what John is talking about, particularly with this sort of end around of governance and inclusion from faculty, what might be the short-term and long-term implications of that in terms of the way faculty experience their work. So thank you for setting us up. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Sorry for the little, I thought I was mixing people up, and that's beyond my functionality expertise right now. So
no worries. Good.
I'm gonna try. I started moving people around like manually, so sorry if that was a little bit jarring.
Charles will help you with that next time.
There you go.
There's that personal electronics consultant when I need.
There you go.
Right.
If I could, Kathy, just do a really quick, I know some people don't have their cameras up, and that's fine, but just a quick show of hands. How many of your campuses, for your emergency management team or your COVID response team, however this has been handled, how many of those committees have faculty representation, either Senate leadership or somebody? Just show of hands. Oh, some don't know. That's kind of scary. Okay, so a number of them do. Okay, I know. Just for example, Joe told us they do. Jeannie, that you guys had to kind of ask to be included. That wasn't the way it was initially set up, and that's just kind of interesting in terms of trying to have a faculty voice in administration and how do you engage. So I guess it'd be interesting to know what other people talked about.
Mm. In our small group, some really interesting issues popped up, and I will leave it for others to comment. But I would highlight the issues of trust, issues of perceived control.
Can you talk a little bit more about that, Regina, in that context?
I would also actually invite Erin to talk about it.
Thank you, Erin. You're on the spot, man. Can I just ask, like, for process, Brandon, I know can extend the session for up to another 10 minutes. We're at 5 minutes left, and so I'm going to ask that Brandon does that, and whoever can stay, we can wrap up before the next block of this session. So thank you.
Yeah, so it was really just something that came up towards the end. So I was the token person that serves in a partial administrative role. So I've actually been one of the people having to enforce some of the decisions. So I'm an associate director of education for postgraduate programs in the business school at the University of Queensland. And I'm at the bottom of the hill. Well, not quite at the bottom. That's technically the faculty below, but decisions were being made just so quickly on a day-by-day basis at the executive level by the provost and the vice provost and the chancellors. And government was changing, and so we would tell our faculty one thing one day, okay, here's the things that you need to do, and the very next day it would change. And so now it was undo everything that you have done, redo this, and then the next day it would change and change and change. And trust has really been just eroded, and people are extremely cynical. And I know because I talk to them. The responses that I get to emails now are quite blunt, I would say at times. I'm just like, don't shoot the messenger. And it's really, control really has been taken away. There's not a lot. It's basically being told, you can do this, you can't do this. And there's really no, for the most part, there's no gray area, within that. And so moving forward. So now as we're getting ready for semester 2 and saying, here are the things that you need to do. And they're going, yeah, but are you just going to change your mind tomorrow? So therefore I'm going to hold off until you actually know everything that's going on, which I can understand, but it's also then putting individuals even further behind, because as they wait for that, kind of like that final, it's going to come down to 24 hours that they're going to have to get everything ready, which is going to increase their stress. Students aren't getting the information in time. And I just don't know, particularly because, to add on to all of it, we're getting a new vice chancellor this month as well, which when you get a new VC, everything usually at your top level changes. So yeah, great time to come into that position. So coming in to that level of distrust, and people feeling as if really a lot of their academic freedoms have been really have been stripped. And sometimes when those things are stripped away, people really question whether or not they're ever going to get them back as well for that. And we didn't get, like I said, it just came up, very much at the last minute, but I think it's really something important to think about, because I think we all know that you never 100% get trust back. And once trust is lost, the risk of turnover, disengagement, all of that just really skyrockets. And moving to a minimalistic approach, and is that what is really best for our university and for our students as well. And it's just part of a bigger mess, but it's something that really it has to be talked about.
This is one of the things that I think is so interesting. I mean, if you look at the history of the academy, it was an upside down pyramid, right? The whole base was the faculty, and administration was just there literally to support, the monks or whatever, that were doing the thinking and whatnot. And now it's more the classic pyramid. We talk about the corporatization of the academy, and this is accelerating, right? Because in some instances they're having to make decisions, but one of the things that's amazing is I'm starting hearing one of the people, I'm not going to out him, in our group actually talked about retirement as an option in facing these kinds of things going on. And so from a management standpoint, your most valuable asset, even if you want to call us that, is your faculty. Why in the world? You wouldn't go out and put sugar in the gas tanks of all your vehicles. Why would you destroy the trust with your most valuable asset? Yet that's the kind of thing, as Erin was just talking about, is happening. So what could we as faculty do to take more control, or to feel like we've got more control over what's going on in our lives? Because control and trust, there's a lot of connection there. Are there things that we can do?
At least in my institution, in the lack of formal structures, or maybe it's true everywhere, with the lack of formal structures, I saw a lot of hands when you asked the question, how many decision-making bodies have faculty, but then we're looking in the chat where either people don't know, don't have it, or in Caitlin's position, and Jeannie's position, you're being asked, but so it's like the illusion of participation. So like in the absence of formal systems, we know we rely on informal systems. And one thing that I have had to learn, and Jeannie has heard me whine about this for 8 years-ish, is the politicking, like the very high touch, trying to influence in informal ways has been super important during this time. And that can be exhausting. So I'm wondering what other people, to John's question, we've gone to informal politics and influence tactics.
Meg wanted to say something there.
Yeah, I just want to share, I was sharing at the end with my group that at our last faculty senate and union meeting in the spring, the 2 separate meetings, but at both meetings, the faculty were really adamant that they wanted to continue to have these meetings and conversations over the summer. And so everybody agreed to that. So we continue to have faculty senate meetings once a month and union meetings once a month. And they're really well organized, and there are Google documents where you can put in questions, and there's a tremendous amount of grassroots communication that at the same time has become very organized. So faculty really feel like they're being heard, and then the leadership continues to bring what comes up to the administration. And everyone has felt very empowered, and not there hasn't been a lot of feeling like they're doing stuff and we don't know.
Yeah, similar to Meg, we've continued to have some faculty assemblies over the summer that are optional. So not everybody shows up, because there are still some people who feel like my summertime is not my time to be engaged with whatever's going on at school. But most of us right now are very interested in what the heck is going on. And they do have a Qualtrics form set up where we can submit questions, and they've been pretty good at trying to get us some feedback on a lot of that stuff. After one of the faculty committees was asked to make decisions or recommendations about how to handle budget cuts, and what they decided to do was completely different from what the committee recommended. The assembly did write a letter to administration and request that a faculty member be allowed to meet with the administration to get financial reports on a regular basis to report back to us, which was granted, which was great. But then there was also this back and forth among the faculty. The original proposal was that someone from the business school with a finance or accounting background would be this person. And a lot of our liberal arts faculty were very resistant to let a business person be the person that represented the whole faculty because of the internal politics within the university. So there's also those issues.
Well, I know we're about out of time. And if I could, one real quick a show of hands, this idea of whether it's formal or informal, kind of this grassroots up, like Meg was talking about, how many of you have those kinds of activities going on in your campus this summer that you're aware of? Okay, now we're only, whoa, okay, not a lot do, okay.
Very interesting.
Yeah, that is really interesting. Now ours is our regular faculty senate that has a summer meeting. It's a reduced group, but we get reports and we can have input into it. How many of you, and maybe another show of hands, how many of you feel like, okay, the structures are in place, but how many of you feel like you actually are connected or you have input or get feedback from those structures? In other words, not just technical, you feel connected with those structures. How many of you feel like you're connected with those summer structures? Okay, see, that's what worries me. Okay, all right, there's some thumbs up. Okay, well, that's interesting. Well, I would just say thank you all very much for participating in this section. It's been very helpful. To me, the history of administration, I train in managerial skills, and this idea of how do you connect with your people is just so essential to who I think I am and what I believe in administrations, that this is an interesting time to watch how the Academy deals with this. So you guys, everybody hang in there and don't give up, right? Don't give up.
That's our
Yeah.
revival for the day. But
There you go.
thank you. We have a break now, and then coming back, we're going to talk about the faculty role and how we're maintaining our sanity from with our relationships with students. That's Regina. And then Marissa and Erin are going to talk about faculty sort of in the center of external stakeholders and what that looks like. What are some of those pressures? How should we be thinking about that? And then Erin and I are going to be talking about our families, faculty families, the people who are sheltered with us or in some sort of boxed in with us, and sort of what that's looked like. So I hope everybody can get a little food. I know I am. And then we'll come back in about 25 minutes. I hope to see everybody back, or I hope you find a good session. So thank you so much, everybody. We'll see you
That's
soon.
great.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.